Welcome to the deep dive. There's just a ton of information out there about career transitions. It can be overwhelming, but today we're going to cut through all that noise and really zero in on something pretty powerful, maybe even surprising. We're looking at how military veterans are making this huge shift and not just, finding a new career, but actually thriving in the super competitive world of consulting, specifically within those big names, the big four firms.
Yeah, it's a really interesting intersection.
Absolutely. So this deep dive, it's all about exploring that synergy, that connection between military experience and what top-tier consulting demands. We're going to unpack why veterans seem to fit so well, why they're excelling. And we've got some really compelling stories from veterans who've actually made that leap. Our source material for this is an e-magazine, and it's just packed with insights, direct interviews with veterans. So we're getting it straight from them.
Gives us a real insider's perspective, which is great.
Exactly. So our mission really is to pull out the most important bits for you. Give you a shortcut to understanding the paths, the hurdles, sure, but also the huge opportunities for veterans in consulting. We'll be hitting on some surprising facts, unique viewpoints along the way. Okay, ready to dive in?
Let's do it. What's fascinating, this really comes through in the source material you mentioned, is just how, well, naturally these two worlds seem to align. It's almost like they were designed for each other in some ways. When you think about the big four firms, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, PwC, these are massive global operations.
Right, huge reach. Yeah.
You've got a global HQ setting the big picture strategy. Then you have member firms in specific countries. And within those, all these different service lines.
Okay, so with that kind of global scale, what are they actually doing day to day? Is it like all taxes and audits, or is there more to it?
Oh, much more. I mean, yes, they definitely do audit and insurance, tax services, things like risk and cybersecurity, forensics. That's all part of it. But the area we're really focusing on today, the core for this discussion, is advisory or consulting.
Okay.
That's where they're helping clients solve these really complex, often thorny, strategic and operational problems. Think big transformations, digital shifts, innovation challenges. It's a really broad field of problem solving.
Got it. That makes sense. And the connection to military life, it starts pretty quickly then, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
If you look at how these big four firms work, they kind of function like, well, the source calls them mission-focused consulting data groups, which I think is a great analogy.
Yeah, I like that.
Professionals get deployed onto client projects, right? And you can think of those projects as missions. They might last a few weeks, maybe several months. And the teams, they're put together based on very specific skills needed for that mission, just like you'd form a task force for an operation.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
And the reporting structure is interesting, too. On a project, you'll have a project manager, kind of like your leader on that specific mission. But you also have a functional line manager looking after your broader career growth.
Dual reporting.
Exactly. Plus, these teams often work across borders, different time zones, different cultures. That needs serious coordination.
Sounds a lot like joint multinational military operations, actually.
Precisely. And just like the military invests heavily in training, these firms have structured programs for technical skills, leadership development, getting certifications, and promotions, career progression. It's merit-based. It really mirrors how advancement works in the armed forces, based on demonstrated competence and leadership.
That parallel is striking, and it leads right into those core traits veterans bring, the ones the source says are basically non-negotiable for doing well in the Big Four. First one, exceptional adaptability and learning agility. I mean, who else is constantly trained to operate effectively when the mission changes, when things are ambiguous?
Right. Thriving in uncertainty.
Exactly. It's practically hardwired for military service. It makes veterans incredibly valuable in these dynamic Big Four settings, really strong team players in complex situations.
Yeah, handling ambiguity is key in consulting.
Then you've got integrity, loyalty, honesty, ethics, and accountability.
Yeah.
These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're fundamental. For veterans, it's ingrained.
Foundational, really.
And absolutely critical for building client trust, upholding the high professional standards these firms live by, especially when the stakes are high.
Absolutely crucial.
And finally, that mission-focused execution. Veterans just bring this results-driven, kind of no-fail mindset to getting client outcomes. It's about delivering, period.
Which naturally raises the question for veterans listening.
Yeah.
Okay, I have these core skills, but how do they actually map to specific jobs in consulting? The source gives some really good concrete examples here. Let's say your background is in planning, strategy, and operations.
Okay.
That lines up perfectly with management consulting, particularly if you're looking at government or public sector work, where that structured approach is gold.
Makes sense.
Or maybe you were in computer security and intelligence. That's a direct line into cybersecurity risk advisory, a huge field right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Got experience in logistics and transportation, think supply chain or project management consulting. They need people who understand complex flows and execution, personnel training and development. That translates really well to HR human capital advisory or organizational change management, helping companies manage their people through transitions.
Right.
And if you handled admin finance, areas like audit, finance, internal controls, even facilities management are potential fits.
That's such a helpful breakdown. It makes it much less abstract. How often do you actually see these kinds of direct skill transfers happening when veterans move into the Big Four?
Oh, very often.
Yeah.
The core competencies, the critical thinking, the leadership under pressure, the teamwork, those are the bedrock, right? They apply everywhere. These examples just show the common starting points, how those fundamental military experiences align with specific corporate functions. It definitely opens your eyes to possibilities you might not have thought of initially.
Okay, so we've established this strong alignment, the synergy. But for a veteran thinking about this, the next big step is, how do I actually do it? How do I make that transition? Because let's face it, moving from the armed forces to a Big Four firm can seem like a huge leap.
It can seem daunting, yeah.
But the source material is really encouraging here. It stresses that a smooth, successful transition, totally possible, but you need the right preparation. The core advice boils down to this. Combine your leadership experience with relevant industry skills, and crucially, learn to present yourself in business terms. Do that, and you can absolutely build a successful post-service career.
That's the key message. And the source gives some very practical, actionable steps for that prep work. First off, acquire relevant civil certifications.
Like what specifically?
Think about things like PMP for project management. That's widely recognized. CISA for information systems audit. Maybe CCH for ethical hacking if you're going into cyber. Prince 2 is another Project 1. Six Sigma for process improvement. These signal you've invested in learning civilian industry standards. The source also suggests looking into an executive MBA or maybe an analytics program from a good B school. Big Four firms definitely recruit heavily from those programs.
Good tip. What else?
Second, and this one's huge, build a corporate-ready resume. This is about translation. You need to highlight your achievements using metrics, quantifiable results.
So instead of just saying managed personnel.
Exactly. You'd say something like, led a team of 50 achieving X objective ahead of schedule. Or quantify impact, reduced response time by 30%, or maybe managed a turnover of more than 100 million every year. Numbers talk in business. And critically, avoid military jargon. Focus entirely on the business impact. Keep it concise, ideally 2 pages max.
That translation piece is vital.
Absolutely. And third, improve business communication and client-facing soft skills. This covers everything from writing professional emails and crafting compelling presentations to negotiation skills and just effective virtual communication, which is so important now. These are the practical things that bridge the gap.
Really solid advice. Now, in terms of actually getting in, the Big Four firms have a pretty standard rank structure, right? And kind of echoes the military in a way. Where do veterans typically land when they join? Well, the source suggests if you're superannuating, completing your full service, you might often aim for an associate director or even director level role.
Okay, senior entry.
Yeah. But if you've taken PMR, that's premature retirement, maybe after 10 or 15 years, you might come in at the manager level and then progress from there. But at the end of the day, it really would be dependent on role fitment and what value skills the veteran brings to the table. It's about matching your specific experience to their specific need.
Makes sense. It's not just about time served, but the relevance of the skills. So once you've done the prep, navigated the interviews, and landed the role, what's the onboarding like? It typically starts with a series of, interviews or conversations, really, with HR, technical folks, leaders, often partners.
Right, the final hurdles.
Yeah. HR will cover the role specifics, title, service line, compensation, all that.
Yeah.
If everyone agrees, you get the confirmation email, the formal offer letter, then comes the more formal orientation program and mandatory trainings. Pretty standard corporate stuff. You'll also likely get assigned a buddy.
A buddy, like in the military.
Sort of. Usually a peer or maybe someone a bit more junior, just to help you learn the ropes, navigate the internal systems, the culture. And for directors and above, some firms even provide an executive assistant to help with admin.
Okay, good support structures.
Yeah.
So you're onboarded. What's life really like inside that Big Four consulting whirlwind? What's a typical day? Well, the source gets a laugh out of this one, noting that a typical day often means none, which kind of sums up consulting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty accurate, unpredictable.
They emphasize work is where my laptop is. I am untethered from location. That seems incredibly agile, almost like being deployed in the field again in a way.
It really is. Your office is often wherever the work needs doing, but there are some common components to the day. You'll usually start with a morning routine and catch-up, checking emails, calendar, maybe client dashboards if you're on a project, scanning industry news, standard stuff. Then often a daily stand-up meeting with your project team. Quick alignment. What's everyone working on? Any roadblocks?
Okay, familiar rhythm.
From there, yeah, it can go anywhere. You might have a client meeting or workshop, could be presenting findings, brainstorming solutions, aligning stakeholders. Then you'll likely have a work block analysis period. This is the heads down time, drafting deliverables, crunching numbers in Excel, building slides in PowerPoint, maybe using tools like Power BI for data viz.
The real doing part.
Exactly. And there's also constant internal team coordination knowledge sharing, maybe mentoring junior team members, collaborating with colleagues on tricky problems.
Then the dreaded timesheets.
Oh, yes. You have to complete timesheets daily, usually logging 9 hours of work 5 days a week. But, and this is a big but from the source, there's no embargo on working outside the working hours or on weekends because achieving targets goals is primary.
So 9 to 5 is more of a guideline? Or maybe not even that.
Pretty much. The focus is purely on hitting your targets. That often means long hours, weekends, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We have targets like sales revenue, SR, and managed revenue, MR, basically, how much business you bring in or manage.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. Those targets can be incredibly high, sometimes 30 or 40 times your fixed salary. And they're very strict integrity clauses, too, to avoid conflicts of interest. It's a high-pressure, high-stakes environment, no doubt about it.
Definitely a different world. Which brings us to culture. How different is it from military life?
Significantly different in some ways. The source puts it bluntly. No buddies in the same military sense, no flags and no salutes. You're one among many, and this is key. Age doesn't guarantee respect, contribution does.
Oh, that's a big one. Hierarchy.
Much flatter, generally. You could easily find yourself reporting to someone much younger than you who has deep expertise in a specific area. That requires adjusting your mindset.
How you communicate must change too, right?
Massively. The source says language matters. Military uses acronyms, direct orders. Consulting uses decks and subtlety. You have to learn to write crisply, persuade subtly, and align teams without ordering around. It's a different kind of influence.
And feedback. Less formal, maybe.
Actually, more frequent and formal in its own way. Feedback is constant. Think quarterly evaluations. Every quarter is an evaluation, not just your annual performance report like in the military. Yeah. Constant assessment.
Wow, okay. Quarterly evals, that's a pace. How does a veteran, maybe someone used to a more structured hierarchical system, typically handle that flatter structure and constant feedback loop?
It's definitely an adjustment, no question. But remember that adaptability we talked about. That's crucial here. While the external signs of rank are gone, some core things do feel familiar. That mission-first mindset, still there. It's just focused on client outcomes now, stakeholder management. Veterans have done tons of that, coordinating different units, agencies, allies. Now it's clients, internal teams, vendors, same skill, different context.
Okay, that makes sense.
And leading from the front is still valued. Consulting, as the source aptly puts it, is about getting things done, sometimes through messy trenches of Excel sheets and status calls. The battlefield looks different, but the drive to achieve the objective is the same.
So the core leadership principles still apply, just expressed differently.
Exactly. And to really sustain success long-term in this environment, there are other essential skills.
Yeah.
The source highlights. You need strong technical skills, relevant to your area, obviously, and sharp analytical skills, but also executive presence, how you carry yourself, how you communicate, even virtually. It's about winning client confidence. Professionalism is key. Deliver what you promise. Own your actions. Give honest counsel.
And agility.
Crucial.
Right.
Agility to absorb changes, pivot when needed, keep projects moving forward when things inevitably go off script, and maybe most importantly, be a learner for life.
Keep upskilling. Constantly.
Gain adjacent skills, complementary skills, stay ahead of technology obsolescence. The source also strongly advises finding both a mentor, someone to guide you, and a sponsor, someone to advocate for you. And try to think like a partner from day one. Understand the business side.
Think like a partner. That's aiming high from the start. Okay, this
Yeah.
is all great context. But now, for the really inspiring part, let's talk about some actual people, real veterans who've made this transition and are absolutely knocking it out of the park in the Big Four and beyond. These stories really show that military experience isn't just transferable, it's a serious asset.
Yeah, these examples are powerful.
Let's start with Colonel Dr. Atul Kumar, Red Ed. His career path is just incredible. He led huge ERP implementations in the Army, big complex tech projects. Then he transitions, becomes a director at Deloitte India,
Wow.
then a principal consultant at Boston Consulting Group, another top-tier firm. And now he's the CEO of a cybersecurity company. Talk about leveraging strategic and technical expertise honed in the military.
That's a fantastic trajectory. Shows the potential.
Absolutely. Then there's Lieutenant Colonel Gagan Buddharaja, Reddit. He's currently a director in cyber forensics at KPMG India. His military background involved commanding large numbers of personnel, managing massive communication projects worth billions.
Serious responsibility.
Totally. And that directly prepared him for his complex work at KPMG. He's led major projects there, helped a client snag a Guinness World Record, even established India's largest cybercrime lab.
Incredible impact.
And here's what's really striking. He was proactive about upskilling while still in service. He got an MTech from IIT Kharagpur, an MBA, plus a whole string of top cyber certifications, CSM, CISA, CEH, CHFI.
That commitment to learning again, it's a pattern.
It really is. We also see squadron leader Vijay Karthik, Retted, after a decade in the Indian Air Force, plus some earlier corporate experience at places like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. He's found real success in organizational change management within a Big Four firm. That blend of military leadership and prior corporate exposure gave him a unique edge.
Diverse experiences feeding into consulting.
Exactly. And for anyone thinking, is it too late for me? Look at Lieutenant Commander Srivatsan, Red Ed. He joined EY in technology consulting at 54. Talk about a late entry advantage.
That's fantastic. Age is not the barrier, some might think.
Not at all. He's working on cutting-edge safe city projects, advising on drone ecosystems, and he's even embraced generative AI in his work. His philosophy, which really hit home for us from the source, is you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from depth.
I love that quote, starting from depth. It perfectly captures the value veterans bring.
Doesn't it? It reframes the whole transition.
And while the Big Four is our focus today, it's worth noting briefly that this success isn't limited to just consulting. The source points to broader examples too. Think about business titans who are veterans. People like Fred Smith, who founded FedEx, Sam Walton of Walmart, Bob Parsons, who started GoDaddy, Richard Kinder of Kinder Morgan. Visionaries who often credited lessons learned in service for their success.
Right, that leadership and execution mindset plays out everywhere.
Yeah, and even today, you see veterans like Cap Sujay Hegde, now Director of Security Operations at Oracle, or Cap Mohit Gupta, Group Head of Warehouse Automation and Logistics in the UK. They've adapted those military traits, kept learning, and succeeded in diverse global industries. There's also Kuldeepak Parikh mentioned, who built a successful facilities management and security business based purely on ethical practices and word of mouth. A real entrepreneurial shift.
It just underscores the point, doesn't it? Whether it's Big Four consulting, leading tech operations, or building your own business, those foundational military skills and values are incredibly versatile and enduringly valuable. Really inspiring stuff. So let's sort of bring this all together. Our deep dive today really highlights how military service builds this unique toolkit, right? Critical skills, core values.
Adaptability, integrity, that mission-focused leadership.
Exactly. And these aren't just things you list on a resume. They genuinely, profoundly align with what's needed in the fast-paced, demanding, but also incredibly rewarding world of consulting, especially within the Big Four.
Yeah, what we've seen from the source material, the practical advice, the direct experiences, those success stories, it paints a really clear picture. It shows a viable, genuinely inspiring path for veterans. It's not about just retiring from the military. It's about reorienting that experience and drive to make a significant continued impact in the civilian corporate world.
Well said. So thinking about everything we've covered, what really stands out to you, the listener? Maybe it's that powerful idea we just touched on that your military background isn't something you need to downplay or translate away. It's actually a profound depth of experience, as LT CDR Srivatsan put it. It's something to leverage.
Your ultimate differentiator, perhaps.
Could be, or maybe it's just seeing that your unique journey, your specific skills, it could be exactly what these top firms are actively looking for. So if you are a veteran and you're thinking about that next chapter, that next mission, just remember what we've unpacked today. You're absolutely not starting from scratch. You're starting from strength. You're starting from depth, and you're ready to make a real impact.